Hello, I'm Grace Baroni, and welcome to Conversations with the ERC5. Today we have with us your favorite realtor, Christine Strohman. Christine, welcome to the podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Thank you for having me, Grace. It's a pleasure to be here.
Christine, let's start off by you telling me about your exciting career in real estate. And how long have you been doing real estate? Because I think that's important to share with everyone.
1,000 years.
Okay.
1,000 years. No. Actually, I started selling real estate in Hampden County in 1998. So this is my 25th year of practice.
That is wonderful. Well, and I think knowing how long you've been in real estate is important because you were with, when you first started, was it Stearns and Yarrow? And I was with Landry Lyons and White. We were competitors across the way from each other.
Yes.
But something that I have learned, real estate is a lot of work. I got into it thinking, oh, I'm home, raising 2 children. I'll do it part-time. There's no such thing. You don't do real estate part-time. It's a full-time endeavor. But I also noticed in the years that I was doing it, that a lot of people jump on board when the market is hot and everybody wants to become a realtor, right? Sure. Because it's real easy. But there's a big difference. The realtors that are in it are well educated, they're trained, they are real estate professionals. They wear the R, the realtor, and that's important that you know who it is that you're working with because there's been so many changes.
Absolutely. And yes, experience in real estate is a really important factor to consider when you're deciding who do you work with, because who you hire to represent you in a real estate transaction is really important.
Yes. Being
experienced and well-trained, ethical, and of course, honest, and have the ability to have really tough conversations, which is, very common.
Yes.
During the transaction, trusting that somebody's giving you the best advice, guiding you in your best interests and not necessarily theirs is really an important consideration. And the market is always changing, right? So when
yes,
so the last
it's one of our questions, Christine. We want advice from you.
Okay, I'll give you my best. What would you like to know?
The market. My gosh, is it, you hear it's a seller's market, prices, are they going to level off? Mortgage, and there's so many questions. And how do you know if it's the right time to sell? And if it's a seller's market, then what does that mean for me? Maybe I shouldn't be, should I,
there's a lot to consider. Yes, there's a lot to consider. And these are conversations that I'm fortunate enough to have with people every day. And there is no steadfast answer to, is it the right time to buy or sell? It is very personal. It depends a lot about what is happening in your life at any given time, right? So a real estate transaction is often happening at the same time that other major life events are happening, right? When people tend to move when somebody gets engaged or married, right? Big event. Buying a home can often happen at the same time. You're expanding your family. That's a big life moment. So you need bigger space. So people are often buying and selling then. Somebody passes, right? So somebody divorces, right? These are big life moments when you often are ready to make a change. And so the first thing that we want to have a conversation about is what's going on with you in your life that would precipitate this change, right? Because we want to take care of the people first. And then we talk about what's happening in the market and the property that you either want to buy or sell. And then we handle the process from there. So in my career, it goes people, property, process. And in today's market, the rise in interest rates, which has been considerable, the market is starting to normalize. And And what I mean by that is that the the escalation of prices has started to slow down.
Okay.
Right. We are seeing that properties that are properly priced and prepared are still selling well. They're just not selling at the speed that they were the last 36 months, right? Where you'd put something on the market, things would be under contract within a minute, like you didn't even...
that was like unheard of,
right? Yes,
and it was like,
it was a very unique time in our marketplace, and we're starting to see that slow down a little bit, especially in the higher luxury price points. And luxury for Western Massachusetts is anything over $500,000 or $600,000.
Okay.
Anything below that is still moving pretty darn quickly. If you are if you're becoming a first-time home buyer, this can be a really exciting and really scary time,
right? Because you've got the rates, on mortgages, but at the same time, it is exciting because maybe now's the opportunity as a first-time home buyer.
Sure. Most first-time home buyers, they're not using the rates as their motivation.
Okay.
It's just time in their life, right? To go and buy. When I bought my first home, it was a year after I'd gotten married. It was 1988. We closed at 14%, which was a deal. I didn't look to the rates to decide if it was a good time to buy. It was just the right time in my life.
True.
And we need first-time home buyers.
Yes.
Without first-time home buyers, none of the other markets move. So if you find something that really suits your needs, buy it. I'd still say buy it. Don't wait.
Good advice. Okay, everyone remember that.
Is that helpful?
So, yes, I think it's very helpful. Another thing, when I was in real estate that didn't exist, I mean, you could be a realtor and you could buy and sell. You could list, and sell the same property.
Yes.
And now... explain, like, are you a buyer's agent, a seller's agent? Because I've been away for a while, and it's like there really is a lot to know. So much has changed.
There is a lot to know, and it can get very complicated.
Yes.
There is no stead and fast rule. It's very broker dependent. So depending on the agent, the brokerage that the agent is aligned with can influence whether they can represent both the seller and the buyer simultaneously. There's some caveats to that, but it really depends. There's a lot that people need to consider. When you hire an agent to represent you as a seller, I think it's always best to keep that representation exclusive. If a buyer comes to the table or comes to the listing agent and asks if they can represent them as well, I think it's almost always better for the buyer to get referred out to another agent so that each party is properly represented and there's no conflict of interest.
Okay.
But there's nothing that exclusively prohibits an agent from doing that. But it's usually better.
And it does. It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
You want someone to be able to represent you to your best interest.
Yeah.
And that puts a heavy load on the realtor when you've got to be playing dual roles there.
For sure.
I'm not saying it can't be done,
No,
but that
correct.
is a lot to put on an individual.
When you hire an agent, you're looking for an advocate, usually,
Yes.
right? And when one agent is quote unquote representing both parties in a transaction, their role really becomes a facilitator rather than an advocate. Right? So if you're okay as a seller or a buyer advocating for yourself, it's okay to let the agent be the facilitator. And most people don't buy and sell properties enough in their lifetime to know what they're doing, to know that they can advocate for themselves well. And that's why we hire agents.
Yes, to help us through this whole process.
It's a big deal.
Because I call you, you come over, and I'm maybe looking at you to do a market analysis, right? So we start with that. That's a process.
It is.
How do you go about determining what the value is? or where you think I should price it? Because
Sure.
obviously I'm going to say, oh, I want it all the way up here.
I looked at Zillow. Zillow told me X.
Yes.
Which is very common, right? It's a very common conversation. And Zillow certainly has its place. In other places in the country, a Zestimate from Zillow can be used as a fair comparative market analysis. Here in New England, it's much less so. The algorithms in Zillow can't accommodate the type of housing that we have here.
Okay.
So when an agent comes into your home, you've invited them in and you say, we'd love to have this conversation. First, we're going to find out why you're moving. What's your motivation, right? And then we're going to look at the property. And then we're going to go back and we're going to dig a little bit. And we're going to look for some data, right? The data that we're looking for is a minimum of 3 to 5 properties that have similar size, age, and condition as yours. And we're going to compare and contrast that have actually sold, right, or are currently under agreement. We look at that and we compare them to your property, and it typically gives us a good range, right? So if it's a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath home in almost any suburban community, right, that has 2,500 square feet, kind of off the top of your head, you're going to guess as an agent who's experienced in the marketplace that you're going to be somewhere between that $450,000 and $550,000 range. Right. And then you're just going to look for evidence to support that notion. And then you sit down with the homeowner again and you look at that data together. And I like to let the homeowner decide what the price point is. Right. Because we're looking at the same data together and they can help kind of self-discover where they should be properly priced. And if I think that they're wrong, then we'll guide them to the right price.
Lots of guiding.
Lots of guiding.
Well, this is one of the largest purchases that we will all make. So for our realtors, for our friends at home who are watching and maybe considering putting their home on the market or making a purchase, what is the best way for them to reach you? Because I'm sure they, like me, have a whole bunch more questions that they want to ask you, but we don't have that much time. But if they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that? And we can continue the conversation.
Absolutely. So certainly go to my website, ChristineStrohman.com. You can certainly feel free to call or text me. That number would be 413-367-MOVE, M-O-V-E. So 413-367-6683.
Wonderful. Christine, this has been so wonderful. I wish we could talk longer, and maybe we'll do a follow-up to this soon. Thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you for watching this podcast. If you'd like to be the next guest here on Conversations with the ERC5, go to our website at ERC5.com and you can sign up there and join us here at Stonegate Studios in Wilbraham.